What is up, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Ask the Amateur, where I answer the questions that I get asked most as an aspiring IFBB bikini pro. And today's question is, how do I deal mentally with weight fluctuations? So today I'm going to share a little bit about my relationship with the scale and how it's evolved. I'm going to share some of the biggest mistakes that I have made. I'm going to share some of the biggest mistakes I see others make. Hopefully sharing a little bit about my personal experiences and my insights and perspectives as both an athlete and a coach, give you a little clarity and improve your relationship with the scale moving forward. So I think the biggest thing that changed my relationship with the scale was understanding what was actually required to build the physique that I was after. Because in bikini, we are not judged on our body weight. We are judged on our overall look. And the bikini standard has changed quite a bit since I got into this sport 6 years ago. The judges used to reward a much leaner look, and now they're rewarding a more full look, more shape, more muscle maturity, and density. I think the biggest mistake people make, and a mistake I have certainly made in the past, this is tying your goal to an unrealistic timeline. And so the mistake a lot of first-time competitors or competitors in general make is they choose a show date. So they want to be show ready by this date. Or if you're not a competitor and you have a wedding to attend on this date and you want to be this amount of weight on this date for this event, that is great that you have a goal and that you have a vision. However, there are phases to this work. When setting a goal, it is important to first get your body composition to a good place, establishing a strong baseline and doing the work so that whatever your goals are, you have primed your metabolism to actually respond, which makes for a more linear and better experience. I have learned this the hard way, and I have had really hard preps where my food had to go super low, my cardio had to go super high because my body composition was not in a good place going into it. I did not have the muscle going into it. And so when you don't go through the proper phases, it makes the experience much more difficult. And so first understanding that there are phases to this work, but then also actually committing and being in that phase for the time required. And so again, once I understood what was actually required to build the physique that I was after, I got way less attached to the outcome and way more invested in the process and in the phases. And so things finally clicked for me in my most recent improvement season for a couple of reasons. I fully committed to the process and I did it the right way. Meaning my body composition was in a good place going into my improvement season because I did a proper reverse out of my last show and I worked my food up slowly. So my body fat never got out of control. The mistake a lot of competitors make, and a mistake I've made in the past, is not working with a coach during your improvement season. And arguably, that is the most important time to work with a coach because there is a right way to build muscle. And this is where people get a really bad relationship with the scale, seeing that number go up. So there's a couple reasons why this improvement season was so significant in having a better relationship with the scale. And that came down to committing to the phase, eating more food that I was comfortable with, training hard, recovering hard, actually being in this phase, understanding my body weight is going to go up, but when you do it the right way, your body fat doesn't have to get out of control. So with the proper guidance, structure, and support, you can build muscle, stay lean, gain weight, and really set yourself up for the next phase. So fully committing, doing it the right way, understanding that this phase is temporary and that it has purpose, but also being very honest with myself because this was my first honest improvement season. And a couple things that really helped me here was not using the scale as the only way that I was measuring my progress. Measuring my progress by my performance in the gym, how my clothes are fitting, my confidence, but also weekly check-in photos, and also the in-body analysis, which breaks down your body composition. So as I saw the number on the scale going up, you can also take a deeper look into what that number is made up of. And actually, in this improvement season, I didn't lean on this tool a whole lot. And I'm glad I didn't, because you have to give yourself time to improve. But in the 6 months that I did commit to this phase, my body fat percentage stayed under 15%. And I was eating a lot of food. I also had the option to have a meal off plan once a week. So again, taking this phase very seriously really changed my relationship with the scale. It wasn't scary seeing that number go up, because I felt so confident in my body. I felt strong and my mind was in the right place. And I was also very honest with myself and with my coach. Because when you aren't, and you fall off on the weekends, you're spending the week playing cleanup and catch up, and that compounds over time, which leads to poor body fat percentage, and you lose trust with yourself. So when you start becoming dishonest with yourself or with your coach, stepping on the scale becomes a lot more emotional. And it typically becomes emotional because our effort or our intentions are not matching our actions. So measuring my progress by not just the number on the scale, but also the photos was a huge eye opener for me. And what I find as a coach is a lot of people struggle with both the scale and the photos. And the reason for that being is they don't lie. Your body and your weight are a direct reflection of what you're putting into it and how you're moving. And when we're not 100% honest, or our actions are not 100% aligned with our intentions and our effort, that's where it becomes both emotional and frustrating. And so having an honest improvement season, stepping on the scale, it became less emotional because I didn't feel like the scale was exposing me. It was simply just information. Weekly check-ins are also super valuable because photos and weight don't always tell the full story. You know, how are your stress levels? How is your sleep? How is your training? How are your steps? How is your water intake? Like, all of these variables really matter. And so really what it comes down to is mastering yourself, mastering those foundational habits, being present in the current phase and setting yourself up for the next one. And so that's really what I did in my improvement season for the first time. And I have been competing for, this is my 6th year competing, you guys. So it's taken me a lot of times of getting it wrong and a lot of years by measuring my progress by that number on the scale alone. And so this prep has been my best one yet. And we have been able to implement so many new strategies, including how frequently I weigh myself. So I used to weigh myself once a week. But as my coach has evolved, as I have evolved, as we have implemented these new strategies, and it's also important to have a coach that really understands where you are as an athlete, because so much of this process is mental. But for me, in this particular season, we have been doing daily weight, and I have learned so much about my body. So if you're not in a good place with yourself in the scale, I do not recommend trying this, but I hope at least me sharing my experience gives you some insight, because what I have learned is that in 1 week time, my weight does fluctuate depending on what muscle group I'm training. Like if I'm doing a heavy lower body day, I could be eating the same thing as when I train upper body, but my weight will be up the next day because I have more inflammation in my legs from that lower body day. So I've really gotten to know and understand how my weight trends in 1 week time. And this will depend on the stress in my life, my digestion, what muscle group I'm training, if it's after a rest day, if it's after a refeed. And so being able to learn all of this about myself and then looking back on the years of frustration, of getting on the scale in the middle of the day and being upset that my weight is higher than it was when I stepped on it naked in the morning. When you're stepping on that scale, you guys, you are weighing every single thing on that scale, including your clothes, including what you've drank, including what you've eaten. So there are a lot of variables and factors to consider. So when that number increases, it doesn't automatically mean that you gain fat. Weight fluctuations are just simply part of the process. And it becomes a lot less frustrating and a lot less emotional when you understand why. So if I had to summarize what changed my relationship with the scale, it would be understanding what's required, approaching each phase correctly and honestly, and also how I'm measuring my progress. In my check-in photos, my progress photos, I am so grateful that I have taken them every single week, because every season that I'm in, I look different at the same body weight. As my muscle matures, as my shape improves, every single season I have had an improved body composition as well. And so when you see those side by sides and you see that number is simply just a number, because I have looked and felt much worse at a much lower body weight. So really what it comes down to is mastering yourself, your mind, your body, being honest. Because the more you understand your body and the more aligned your actions are with your intentions and your effort, the less emotional it becomes. So dealing with weight fluctuations is just part of the process. Your weight will fluctuate on a daily, weekly, and seasonal basis. But if you are in the season that you're in, if you are honest with yourself, if you set yourself up for that next phase, your progress will be so much more linear and you will thank yourself for it. I create systems that save me from me and I share them with you. So if you want my free guide on how to get your mind right for wherever you're at in your health, wellness, and fitness journey, leave me a comment below or slide in my DMs on Instagram and I would love to share it with you. This free guide is a deeper dive into everything that I talked about today, as well as how to apply it. I really hope that sharing some of my insights, perspectives, and experiences has shed some light on why weight fluctuates. But just remember, your dream body weighs more than you think it does. If you like this episode, make sure to like this episode. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'm answering your questions until I earn my title. So drop your next questions below, and I will see you guys in the next episode of Ask the Amateur.